Show me.
You know, we have had a surprisingly great year for martial arts movies so far. Of course, we've had the mountain of old school releases, some of which I have not bought. I am talking about this expensive bitch right here. Do I want it? Sure. Am I resisting the urge? Barely. But this video is not about the old titles. No, we are here to talk about the new stuff, the stuff that has graced our screens in the year 2024 so far. I really had not noticed before considering doing this video just how good of a year we've had so far. I've counted at least 11 discussion-worthy martial arts films that come out this year, and the list is quite diverse. The movies can be broken down into several categories, one being theatrical releases. This includes Monkey Man, Boy Kills World, and The Roundup Punishment. Yes, a foreign film, but I did get to see it in theaters, and I'm very happy I did. There is, of course, movies on streaming. This is Baby Assassins 2, 1% Warrior, 60 Minutes, and City Hunter. The Wonderful World of Low-Budget Films, One More Shot, The Last Kum, and Life After Fighting. There are also several foreign films, such as Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In. Today we are talking about those movies and breaking down which one of those films are absolute must-watches and which ones you can probably skip, as well as everything in between with the help of a handy-dandy tier list. We've got must-watch, recommended, do whatever you want, and skip it. Before we get started, I do have a little bit of business to attend to. One of our films has remained just out of reach for me so far this year, although I do believe I may get to see it in about a month or so, but there's probably a chance I still won't because it probably won't play in my area. Twilight of the Warriors has been praised as one of the best films to come out of China in several years. I've heard nothing but positivity, glowing positivity with golden angel wings. But sadly, I still have not seen it. So we're just going to take that movie and put it in the bin. Other movies I am well aware have come out this year that I still have not seen because they're foreign films, mostly from China, that just have not crossed my path, or I do not have the resources to watch that other people may have. That includes films like Eye for an Eye 2, Hunt for the Wicked, Cruel War, The Gray Man, not the one that you're thinking. So that one will not count, however, I do remain very excited. Instead of Twilight of the Warrior, I do have a backup film. We will instead talk about a movie called The Mob. A film that we got on the Haya streaming service earlier this year, therefore it will be in the streaming category. So why don't we just go ahead and get started with The Mob. This Zhao Kong directed film dropped at the beginning of the year in China and arrived on the Haya streaming service back in May. The Mob is about two warring mafia groups and the sons inheriting the thrones. When our protagonist's father is murdered, he must take control of the organization while finding whomever is responsible for his father's murder. The Mob wonderfully blends crime thriller dramatics with some pretty epic fight scenes. What could easily be just kind of a bland excuse to have a couple decent fights thrown into a film actually turns out to be quite compelling. The Mob actually takes the time to establish well-written characters that helps motivate a story of greed, revenge, and honor. A major highlight outside of the fights was the relationship between the leader, our main hero of this gang, and like the enforcer of the other gang, so not quite the guy in charge, kind of like the number 2, maybe number 3 guy, someone pretty up there. They have a really good budding friendship, all based on their differences and their similarities, their pasts, their backgrounds, and it really motivates going into this final fight scene, this final big battle between the gangs of, is the dramatic story of the world around them going to get between this friendship they're starting? The Mob was a pleasant surprise, and I do think that it does deserve a spot firmly in the recommended category. Baby Assassins 2. While we're on Haya, let's look at two other movies that are currently on the platform. Baby Assassins 2 is a return to the joyful, murderous world of Baby Assassins. And yes, I know that Baby Assassins 3 released this year, but unfortunately, I have not found a good way to see the film. So we will settle for the movie that came out last year, but we got in the US just this year. This sequel keeps the peculiar, pleasant vibes of the first film. It's weird, but you kind of like it. And of course, we get that frantic action style that comes with it. Akari Takaishi and Saori Izawa are bona fide action stars, and their signature brand of guns and fists is back for dramatic and intense fights guaranteed to thrill anyone watching. And of course, with a cameo from my favorite musical group of 2024. Yes, I know they came before, but I sort of found them for myself this year. A cameo from the group Atarashi Gakko. I love them so much. How can I not recommend this film? And actually, screw recommend, this is a must-watch film. Everyone needs to see the Baby Assassins movies. 1% Warrior. Then we have 1% Warrior. Another one that came out last year, but we only just got in America in 2024. Tak Sakaguchi is at the forefront of the action revolution in Japan and has been for about a decade. 1% Warrior is an odd meta martial arts movie with weird characters and even weirder ending. But the action is one of a kind. Tak Sakaguchi is the only one putting out action in his style. His style is this weird blend of tactical martial arts with a flair for the camera. The action is unique, but I don't know if it's for everybody. And the story, the whole sort of vibe of the film is strange. Do I think everyone is going to like this? God, no. Do I recommend it? Absolutely. 60 minutes. Let's move from one streaming service to another and bounce over to Netflix, where two major highlights can be found. We'll start with the big one. All the way back in January, Netflix came out of the gate swinging with an absolute banger in the German film 60 Minutes, a movie about an MMA fighter just trying to get home within an hour to keep custody of his daughter. But a mafia that placed bets on his fight keeps getting in the way and trying to bring him back to his fight. It sounds goofy because, it kind of is, but it works. 60 Minutes genuinely had me stressed out. There is a countdown clock, a 60-minute countdown clock throughout the film that, yes, I will say this movie is definitely well over 60 minutes, so it's not, accurate to real time. But within the story of the film, it being 60 minutes and the time just constantly counting down the entire time, stuff getting in his way, people getting in his way. He needs to also go do this to this, and that also leads to this. It's just so many things, and all of it stressed me out. Anytime he made any kind of progress, something else got in the way. And the fights aren't half bad either, with a terrific blend of realistic technique and flashy choreography. There simply is not a boring moment to be had between a tense story and incredible fight scenes. 60 Minutes is a certifiable must-watch in my opinion. A January film that immediately got a place in my best of the year list. City Hunter. City Hunter is a popular anime and manga dating back to 1985. It had plenty of adaptations, with the most popular one to martial arts fans being the 1993 Jackie Chan film. Well, this year we got another go-around with the private investigator Ryo Saiba. This Netflix original film feels like the pages of the manga come to life, complete with a cool protagonist who can be very goofy at times and also just a massive pervert. But Ryo is also an expert marksman and not too bad with the hands and feet. City Hunter is one of the most fun action films of the year, with some of the most well-crafted gunplay and fight scenes. Netflix again has another must-watch on their hands. Roundup Punishment. In the spirit of saving the best for last, let's jump into the theatrical releases. We'll start with a good one and also visit South Korea with the Don Lee vehicle and third or fourth film in the Roundup franchise, the Roundup Punishment. Don Lee delivers once again with thrilling action in a way only Don Lee truly can. And while his fight scenes are good, I really will not pass up any chance to watch Don Lee throw down. His fight scenes are kind of eclipsed by the villain. The knife-wielding bad guy cuts through all of his enemies with style and deadly precision in just insanely awesome fight scenes. The story in this one did not do much for me, personally, but I was not let down by the action. As I said, I will never pass up a chance to watch Don Lee just punch people in the face. So even without seeing most of the other films in the Roundup franchise, I still highly recommend checking this one out. Monkey Man. Let's move on to something far more people will have heard of and discuss Dev Patel's directorial debut, Monkey Man. I did not like it. I get what it was going for with far more complex and deep themes, and most of that worked just fine. But aside from one or two scenes, I just could not vibe with the action very well. The finale is incredible, but a majority of the movie is just full of some of the worst editing I've seen all year. Shaky cam is one thing, but there were scenes that I found genuinely hard to follow. The car chase scene in particular is one that is just put together in such a mind-boggling way that just watching it in the movie theater gave me a real headache. I'm not even saying like, oh my god, this scene is headache-inducing, as in it's bad, it's annoying, whatever. No, I mean, I was physically uncomfortable and I got a headache. It's an erratic mess. I fully understand why some people like this movie, but the fight choreographer put good work into the action, and most of it, for me, was destroyed. With the finale fight scene really being the only standout moment of the film for me, as I said, the themes and everything, I get it, it all works pretty well, but most of the action in this gave me a real migraine, and for that, this will be the first one that I will put in do what you want, because I get why some people like it. I did not at all. Boy Kills World. Keeping it in the popular media, let's talk about Boy Kills World. Now I could not help but be excited for this one. The trailers perfectly sold it as a potential action classic from the gunplay to the fight scenes. And it was a quirky comedy? Sign me up. But this one was just another letdown. The comedy got old quick and the action was fairly generic. There were a few bright spots in the choreography, but through 85% of the movie, it was just undeserved gore, up until a fairly satisfying fight between Yayan Ruyan and the two heroes. But frankly, if you want to watch a 2-on-1 handicap match against Yayan Ruyan, there are two better movies with better fight scenes that you can go watch. I have not bought this one on Blu-ray because I truly do not plan on watching it again. So, just do whatever you want with this one. One More Shot. Let's get away from all those big budgets and talk about my favorite area, low budget martial arts action. Let's start with the main man, Scott Adkins. While I think he's co-starred in a few other movies this year, the big one that most people were looking forward to was One More Shot, the sequel to the 2019 gem that was One Shot. One Shot is one of the greatest single-take style films ever made in my humble opinion, and I am not being hyperbolic. When people talk about one-shot movies and they talk about Birdman, 1917, Hardcore Henry even, I stand up and say, we need to talk about One Shot. But sadly, I do not feel the same for the sequel. The quality camera work and all the technical aspects, they're back, they make a return. But while the action features more hand-to-hand fight scenes than the first one did, none of it really did anything for me. Even the way in the first film that the camera, being a one-shot single-take style film, the way the camera would move between the villains and the heroes, moving through scenes, moving through plot and story, I found it captivating. I thought it was so interesting the way it moved around, the way it got around the scenery of a scene, the environment, with actual reason. It didn't just randomly move over to the other people. As the scene moved and transitioned somewhere else, it came back around, it stayed with the villains, and something else happened, it went back to the good guys. That was so cool in the first film. It's even that I don't really feel is done with the same level of execution in this film. There's still some good stuff to find here, but I remember it felt more like a setup to the third film. Overall, I just kind of thought when the movie was over, which makes me sad. The Last Kum. Moving on to the movie that took us back to the 1980s. The Last Kumite is a low-budget throwback to the heyday of American martial arts movies. The days of Kickboxer, No Retreat, No Surrender, and China O'Brien. The Last Kumite features stars of many old-school classics, including Cynthia Rothrock, Billy Blanks, Kurt McKinney, Michelle Kesey, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Matthias Hughes. The film also introduces German martial artist Mathis Landwehr. I'm not good with European names. As its star, and from an action perspective, yeah, he's great. He's been killing it for years over in Germany, as well as doing some stunts in some major high-budget Hollywood films. And you can easily find a lot of his very cool fight scenes over on YouTube. But despite the movie being filled with a lot of awesome talent from the old to the new, this movie is very forgettable. Now maybe, if you are a diehard fan of American 80s and 90s style of martial arts action, then this is exactly what you need. But frankly, for me, I'm not a fan of a fight scene being 70% posing. This movie had a lot going for it, and for someone like me, it just was there. Nothing really stuck with me, and my excitement just fizzled into a lackluster Life After Fighting. Let's end this with a wild card. Still in that low budget range, but from way over across the planet in Australia. Life After Fighting is a movie written by, directed by, and starring Bren Foster. A master of Taekwondo, a competitor, teacher, and actor, Bren Foster's Life After Fighting is a martial arts drama for the ages. A film of two halves, with the first being a more dramatic setup sprinkled with brilliant action, all leading up to a final 45-minute battle of intense, violent action in an all-out blitz, the likes of which only someone as skilled as Bren Foster and his team can pull off. And beyond that utterly incredible finale, the film pulls off some surprisingly effective drama, with some incredibly high tension that honestly had my heart racing. I have been singing this movie's praises and recommending it to anyone I can across social media. I am astounded by this accomplishment. I thought this was an incredible film. I found it fascinating that Bren Foster filmed most of this movie. About, I'd say probably a solid 93% of this movie was shot in his actual school. While watching the movie, I was just sort of Googling Bren Foster, and I looked up his school in Australia, and the school that I was looking at on his website was the school in the movie. The people that worked in the school, his assistants, his instructors, his teachers, were his assistants and instructors on the website. I found that so fun. And you could tell that there were like transitional shots of students learning, of students practicing, training, and you could just kind of get that vibe that he just asked them like, hey, is it okay if I film everybody and put it in the movie? Like these transitional shots or shots of him starting a class and you just kind of see students training as time passes throughout the day before leading to another scene. You could just kind of really tell that those were his students. But of course, that final 45-minute fight scene is perfection. The level of martial arts talent and skill mixed with the violence just led to this brilliant brutality. And again, with it being in his school, I'm just kind of picturing that most of the budget went into breakaway glass and breakaway boards that he could put people through and throw people through windows, because he threw people through several windows. Just most of the budget, I feel, went into him modifying his school, and then I picture him cleaning it up the next day so they could have classes the next day. It's a fun thing to think about. I absolutely loved Life After Fighting, and it instantly shot up into my top 3 films of the year. So if you can't tell, Life After Fighting is a guaranteed must watch. I cannot stress this enough. Watch Life After Fighting. And with that, we have 11 martial arts movies that came out this year in America, at least easy ones that you can watch. Nothing that, is a brand new film in China this year that, you probably have to illegally download or just know the right person to watch. Those movies that I sadly still have not seen that I would very much like to. But which of the movies on this tier list here have you seen? Did you like any of them? Tell me your thoughts on all those films in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Head over to Facebook, where there's the Martial Arts Film Freak Facebook page, Instagram, Martial Arts Film Freak, Tristan_Glover on the Twitter, and Martial Arts Film Freak on TikTok. Please, for the love of God, go watch 60 Minutes and Life After Fighting. Those, if anything, are my top 2 films that I very much recommend. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.